Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined the Doctor as he travels the Vortex and arrive at episode 597. I'm Keith.
Sean.
I'm Glenn. How's everybody doing this week?
I am grateful to be out of the hospital.
Yeah, you had a little bout with. Did they ever figure out what it was?
They for me, they would not commit to either transient something attack, TIA, which basically is a mini stroke. Mm-hmm. It's like your body gears all up to have a stroke, but you don't actually have the stroke, so you have some of the symptoms of a stroke, and then it kind of all winds back down and goes away. So they think it might have been that, or a migraine something event.
Oral migraine event?
Maybe.
Those are what I get.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Those are what I get.
But he wouldn't commit, so I have more appointments to go see neurologists and peeps to figure out what that might have been.
Still sounds like it was pretty scary.
Oh, yeah, I bet. Yeah. Well, especially when you don't know what it is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, those are the words.
Because then you're like, am I having a heart attack? Am I having a stroke? Am I having... All those things go through your head. We're going to turn our attention to a period featuring Ncuti Gatwa as the 15th Doctor. I think we're going to take a closer look at his stories, the companions, kind of the overall direction of the show under his portrayal. I have formulated a few questions just to kind of keep us on track and maybe help us with our thought, kind of keep us organized. So I thought I'm not going to be just the questioner. I'll interject with my 2 cents on these as well. But I think this might keep us a little more on track. So my first question is, how do you feel...
Insinuating that we get distracted.
Oh, yes, very much so. I wasn't insinuating. I was basically out saying it.
I'm insulted.
How do you feel Ncuti Gatwa's portrayal of the 15th Doctor evolved over the 2 seasons? And what were the most significant shifts in the character of the Doctor? Keith, you want to go first?
Ooh.
Yeah, Keith, you want to go first?
Unfortunately, I don't know.
I mean, if you don't think there was an evolution, that could be your answer too.
I think there was a small evolution. I don't feel like there was enough of his run to really give him a big, long arc or a whole lot of growth. But I do think we do start seeing a bit more of that darker side of him in the second season, especially when it comes to like the Interstellar Song Contest and a little bit more with this, and like the story in the engine, things like that. He starts taking a little bit more of a darker turn and a bit more almost Time Lord Victorious aspect to him. But other than that, I felt he was fairly consistent throughout his run.
Sean, what do you think?
What do you think, Sean?
Yeah, I hate to say there wasn't enough to really gauge it, because obviously we did notice with Eccleston there was a bit of a shift toward the end of the run, where it seemed like he was settling in and a little more happy to be there, a little more joyous to play the Doctor, as opposed to just showing up and doing the job. But with Gatwa, I agree with you. I think he did. It seems like we got a little more, not necessarily depth, but glances of darkness maybe is the way to do it. Interestingly,
which I think that's more on the writing than his portrayal.
Sure.
So I think his performance was consistent throughout.
I think all of that. Should be considered, though. I think the writing, I think the performance, I think the tone of the series. I think all of that can be included. I did say Ncuti's portrayal, but I think maybe all of that kind of becomes the character. That's what evolves the character, is where the character is coming from. So I think you could say the writing evolved as well, or evolved the character as well.
And part of that might be the racial tensions that are written into the show that we see much more of in the second season. With season 1, it's really only kind of dot and bubble where we come out and call it out that oh, you're black and therefore this is a thing. And they that was kind of only the one example in that season, versus when you get into season 2 and we've got episodes set in 60s Miami, and we've got the Interstellar Song Contest, and we've got, there are kind of several more story beats to that, the engine one, where he's got to kind of confront that head on. So I wonder maybe if that's why we are able to pick up a little bit more on that anger, which again, completely justified, but it does seem like it's there. But yeah, no, beyond that, I agree. I think Ncuti was pretty consistent across the board with his run.
I also wonder if some of the reason why we don't see a lot of that in season 1 as much as we do in season 2, even though Dot and Bubble is one of the examples, is there's basically 2 episodes where he's barely in the season. So we got 6 episodes instead of 8 full episodes with him. Because we didn't have a Doctor... Well, I guess we did have a Doctor... We had 1 Doctor Light as opposed to 2 Doctor Lights in season 2.
Could be.
I sort of agree with both you guys. I think Keith hits the nail on the head that we just don't get enough. I don't think 16, 17, 18 episodes, I guess 18, 19, 18 and a half episodes, really gave him enough time to grow as a character. I think the thing that I noticed, and this is what I think you thought of Eccleston. I disagree. I don't think Eccleston felt more comfortable. In fact, I go back and I look at that, and I find myself shocked after the fact that he was so miserable on the show, because I never felt like it came through in the character. And so I never felt like he didn't want to be there. And so that was quite the shock and revelation to me when I later found out that was the case. With Ncuti, however, I feel like he got more comfortable in the role as it went, and I think he sort of got easier for him to play the Doctor. It seemed anyway over the course of the 2 seasons. I've always felt he hit the ground running as a good Doctor, but I think it was like he had to kind of break those shoes in a little bit. And I think by the time we got to the end of his run, he was there as far as comfort. But I agree that I just don't feel like the character had a chance to evolve in such a short time. And I would say the same about Eccleston. I don't think the character evolved enough. But again, I mean, he had even fewer episodes. He had nearly as many, I guess, because there would have been, back then they were doing
12.
12, yeah, 12, 13 seasons, or series, so.
You're over here talking about 18 episodes isn't enough to develop a character, and Paul McGann is back here screaming, what?
Well, to be fair, I don't think he had a chance either if you don't count audios, because with the audios, that character has and probably had the most growth of any Doctor ever has been him over the course of the 1 film, the 1 TV appearance, and all of the Big Finish audios that they've done.
He had time to establish a character on screen. And that's it.
Right.
He did it all in 1 movie, guys. He went from not knowing anything about who he was to knowing who he was. And he didn't even have a full movie. He had half a movie, because we start with Sylvester.
That's true. 3/4, yeah. 3/4 is probably more fair. Well, Sean, you start this next one. The 15th Doctor era introduced a greater focus on fantasy elements with the gods. How do you think this change in storytelling impact the series, and was it a successful or the right direction to go?
I have enjoyed the shift, as long as I bear in mind that this is a purposeful shift, that we look back at the David Tennant the third, with
David Tennant the third.
I'm out of line, but I'm not wrong.
David,
No, you're
David
right. That's one way to say it.
But with the events of Wild Blue Yonder, that everything has kind of shifted into this fantasy world. So as long as I kind of keep that shift in the back of my mind when we're doing something that I've been on record many times saying I like a little science in my science fiction when it comes to Doctor Who. And so I have to kind of keep going back to that to remind myself of it. And I actually have, in that mindset, enjoyed it. Now, that's me. I know that there is a large selection of fandom, the grumpy ones, but also ones that, who was I just listening? Oh, John Peel. I don't know if you guys have been following him on Facebook. He's just started the Ncuti Gatwa era. And it's been a rough transition. He is one of those that's just simply not enjoying the run so far. Mm-hmm. And I feel for him, because it's like, well, you really have to, if you just took it at face value, yeah, I would hate this. But as long as you take it in context of that episode that everything has springboarded off of, I think it's okay in that context. Now, is this the right direction for the show? I don't know yet, because I still, in my heart of hearts, feel like, regardless of what BBC or Disney or anybody says, so far this has felt like a 3-season run. It feels like this was kind of developed and set up to be a 3-parter, and that we had 2 seasons, and now we're waiting for that final act to kick in. Even though the Doctor has supposedly shifted everything back a 1 degree into, I don't think that was in reference to the bigger problem or the bigger issue of this fantasy universe. I think that was just dealing with Earth at that moment. I could be wrong. The first episode of season 3, they could come out and say gravity, and go, oh, okay, that did fix that. That'll be the clue. But until I hear that, I don't know that I believe it. So I feel like I need to take a wait-and-see approach to see how it all shakes out. And I feel like if you're going to do this, I'd like to, yeah, the gods of the Pantheon have been cool and all, but let's take some big swings. Let's, where's the King Arthur story that, the 7th Doctor is Merlin? Let's do that. Let's do horses and dragons.
Yeah.
Embrace fully.
I think...
Well, I kind of...
No, go ahead.
I can kind of see where Sean's coming from. It feels to me like a natural evolution from what Stephen Moffat was doing with the show. It's just kind of the next step with the justification laid. Instead of giving us justification each episode, a little bit of science each time, it's the excuse way back in, Wild Blue Yonder. This is how we can do this moving forward. And I've enjoyed all of the fantasy elements, because it's not 100% fantasy. It's intermixing fantasy and those sort of things in with our hard science stories too. So I thought it struck a really good balance, and I think it's a good way moving forward to open up the doors to more fans. John Peel may not like it because he likes the old hardcore science fiction stories, but so much more of society is a bit more open and willing to embrace some of these fantasy elements. And I think it's a great way to make it more accessible to other people. Oh, I don't like hard sci-fi. Well, this isn't just hard sci-fi. There's some fantastical stuff too, and that might get more people in to watch it.
Point.
From my perspective, I went into it really excited that they were taking the fantasy approach to it, while keeping, sprinkling enough science fiction in there to keep it at least grounded enough for me. So I was really excited they went through that. And I too, Sean, thought, okay, thank you for Wild Blue Yonder, because you gave me a reason to accept this better. And so I was really having a blast, and I was waiting for the next god to show up and let's go through the Pantheon. I want to see. But, oddly enough, by the middle of season 2, maybe even early, maybe it was just after Lux, I sort of got tired. I didn't I couldn't admit this to myself until recently, but I kind of got tired of the God story. And I think because it felt like it was like every next God should have been more fantastic or more, or harder to defeat than the previous one. But I really kind of feel like none of them were. And then when you have the opportunity to do the God of Time element with Omega, and then you don't really go... Now, granted, I understand that got the short shrift because of the fact that they had to rework that episode to get a regeneration scene. But I came to the realization that I got maybe fantasy fatigue, that maybe they had kind of pushed the envelope a little too far. And then I started second guessing myself because I did the same thing with Wild Blue Yonder. I kept thinking, if I look at this from that perspective, then yeah, I can accept this, but I shouldn't have to look at this from this perspective based on one element. It should have naturally evolved, and I shouldn't have had to convince myself that that was a good reason. And so I kind of felt like I'm at this point now that I'm kind of ready for them to shift back. And I'm glad you hit on this, Keith, because I think you're sort of right. It does feel like an evolution of what Moffat was doing with the fairy tale framing of the stories. But I think that this got just a little too fairy tale, a little too grand. And I think if they had peppered in the fantasy elements like here and there as they've done in the past. I mean, we all love what's the one with the storyteller, the master of stories from the Second Doctor era. Why can't I think of the name of the story?
Mind Robber?
No. Yeah, Mind Robber. That's the one with Zoe.
In the Land of Fiction.
Yes, yeah. Land of Fiction. Great story, and it is very much from the first Doctor's era. We got the Celestial Toymaker. I mean, those were fantastical elements that really stretched the bounds of science fiction. And I think had they done that sparingly in these two seasons, I wouldn't have this gut feeling of, did I really enjoy that much of a fantasy element to it? Did I really enjoy all of the different pantheon of gods? And Sean, you might be right. Had this been a although they didn't know until the end, but if this had been a 3-season arc, maybe it would have felt like they'd stretched that out. But as it is, it just feels like it's kind of pushed together. And I think that when I look at, I'm always very much I don't listen to the haters because the haters are going to hate. But when you look at the bigger picture and you start going, if you weed out the racists and you weed out the misogynists and you weed out the bigots, and you start looking at fandom on a different level, and you see not just classic Who fans that are like not enjoying this series now. And don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the series now, but you've got those guys that aren't. And now you look at the 20 years of new Who fans that are also going, I'm not quite sure this is where I wanted my Doctor Who to go. When you look at the bigger picture, I kind of wonder if maybe, they should pull back a little bit. And maybe doing fantasy elements here and there, as they've done in the past, would make it more successful, but maybe ground the show a little bit more. And I think and for your sake, Sean, I hope that they haven't gone back to the little degree of shift, hasn't been a reset for your sake, for your enjoyment. But I think it does give them a reason and an excuse now to put it back on a different path. So that's where I've kind of come down. And, I've just, maybe I've changed my tone since, even maybe 4 weeks ago, but just on reflecting on this now, knowing we were going to do this show, I kind of looked back and thought, maybe I didn't enjoy it as much as I wanted to enjoy it.
I wonder if you felt fatigue on season 2 because there is more. I mean, if you step back and look at the grand picture of his run, there's 16 stories, essentially.
Sure.
And of those 16, I would count 6 of those as fantasies, including Church on Ruby Road because of the goblins.
Yeah. Well, that would be 18 then, right? Because there have been 8, and then 2 specials.
Right, but 16 stories because I'm counting the 2 finales as one big story.
Oh, good point. Yeah, good point.
Yeah. So there's 3 in season 2 and really only 2 in season 1. So I wonder if that's part of why it feels...
That's a good point.
Like
so,
it's more common.
Let's identify them because I want to make sure that I understand which ones you think. So you think Church on Ruby Road is one. And Devil's Cord would be another one.
And then Legend of Ruby Sunday and Empire of Death.
Okay, so that's 3.
Then I would go Lux, Story in the Engine, and then Wish World and Reality War.
So wouldn't that be 3 and 3?
No, because I consider Wish World and Reality War one story.
What about Space Babies?
No, I don't think Space
Babies...
I
see what you're saying. I see what you're saying of 3-3,
yeah,
but...
Right. I think Space Babies is science fiction. I think, though, that... I just had it in my brain. The second Christmas special, I feel, was...
Joy to the World.
Yeah, I feel that was a lot of fantasy there. It had a lot of more sci-fi trappings, but I think there was a lot of fantasy elements to that as well. And I thought that I'll back off on that one. So I think maybe, but I think you might be right. Although I think
it feels like there was more because they were closer together.
Maybe that, yeah, there you go. That's a better way to say it, because I think they were equal in number, but yeah, they were kind of scrunched closer together in season 2. So that could be Keith.
I think it would be interesting too to put this in context if the internet had been around in the 70s, or was it the 80s? And we suddenly shifted the direction and focus of the show from being this kind of weekly space adventure, base under siege thing to, oh yeah, he's on Earth and he's a military advisor and the aliens come here and that's it. I mean, how much would the internet have been screaming at the powers that be? You know, how dare you, Uncle Terrence, that you took away the time travel and the space travel element of this time-space machine.
Yeah.
And it lasted about 3 years, if I'm not mistaken, before he kind of got the secrets to the TARDIS back.
2.5.
2.5?
Yeah.
So...
3 doctors, he got it back.
Yeah. I don't know. I just feel like with the shorter seasons that 3 was kind of the way to go with it. And, you know, to those people that don't like the way things are going, as we've always said,
stick around.
It's Doctor Who. It'll change, you know.
That's right.
The thing that I've kind of appreciated about having it in that fantasy context is, as great as a writer as Russell T Davies is, his stories tend to have some plot hole in some form or another. And I can tend to hand wave it away when we go, oh, fantasy, than the hard sci-fi ones where it's like, well, but you're not explaining that. Oh, I can explain this because fantasy.
That's a good point, because I think you think...
And I think that's why I've enjoyed this run more so than like most of the rest of RTD's work.
And that's probably...
I've enjoyed... Yeah.
That's probably why I can accept RTD's plot holes, and I have a harder time accepting when Moffat has a plot hole, because his were more grounded, and I kind of feel like there needed to be something to plug that hole, and sometimes it wasn't there.
Exactly.
Does it suddenly mean that we've been wrong? Because we've been fairly big praisers of RTD and his plotting from the get-go, going all the way back to, Eccleston in season 1. Mm-hmm. And now that, the dust cover has been pulled off to reveal, no, it's all due to this trope of doing it this way. Were we just dazzled that Doctor Who was back and we're just therefore automatically happy?
I think we've always had... I bet if we go back and re-listen to our podcast, we would find, oh, well, I had issues with this part of the story, or this part of the story, or there was some problem we always had with each episode that would kind of stem from the same issue if you kind of tracked it, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
I don't know, guys. I'm kind of thinking Traveling the Vortex, the reboot. I think we need to go back to the beginning and do it again.
Do it again.
Maybe do it in order this time.
Yeah.
But Keeper of Charkin still comes last.
All right. Well, let's move along. So Ncuti's doctor is noted for being more emotionally and open and at peace with himself. So how do you think this differentiated him from previous doctors, and what were the strengths and weaknesses to taking this approach with the doctor?
Like the approach because I felt like he was a little bit more relatable, but I don't know how much he was quick to shed a tear, but I don't know how much I buy into the more emotional doctor that he was. A lot of doctors would rage the way Ncuti did. It just, they weren't so quick to kind of shed a tear when they were sad. And I think Ncuti did. So I just don't think I buy into it as much as what everyone kind of says. Oh, this was a much more emotional doctor.
That's a good point. All of the doctors showed emotion. They just showed it in different ways. And so this
Right.
was the 15th Doctor's way of showing emotion. Yeah.
And some repressed it more than others.
Mm-hmm.
Some weren't as affectionate. He was obviously very affectionate, which I thought was nice. But Matt Smith was also very affectionate,
Oh, yeah.
at least with his companions. So I didn't see anything more than I normally saw with the Doctor, I felt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think that there's two different ways you can look at this. You can look at this practically and say, well, obviously in the old days, we barely knew this about ourselves, let alone writing characters that way. So you can immediately kind of dismiss all of classic Who because the doctors weren't going to do that. Because we weren't in touch with our feelings. That was a silly thing to be concerned about. And as in general, we've learned more about emotions and mental stability and things of that nature, that this has crept into the writing of shows kind of across the board. So it's natural that the newer doctors would be more in touch with things to try and make them more relatable. The flip side of that is it could be all part of this ongoing journey that the doctor, going back to Hartnell, is kind of grumpy and crusty, and he's come a long way. And if you take into account I believe it's the Christmas episode or leading into the Christmas episode where Matt Smith is at Amy and Rory's, and she comes out and we've got a place for you. Why would you know you didn't know I was coming? Because we always set a place for you. Come on in. And he suddenly reaches up and realizes that he has a tear falling down his cheek. And he seems genuinely in awe of that he's having this reaction. Well, maybe that's simply the first step. And that as this doctor who has gone through all of this stuff with the Time War and the burning Gallifrey and repressing all of that, and now is psychologically cracking in a way that these emotions that he's bottled up are all starting to boil to the surface and come out. And that's why we get a very angry Scottish one, or a more sensitive Jodie following that. And then a bi-regeneration, which suddenly kind of pulls the stopper out and just says, go, just let it happen. So you can look at it, I think, kind of both ways. And I think it works both ways. There are times, I don't know that I'm as big a fan, or that maybe there's tears happening at a moment that you wouldn't necessarily think that there should be tears happening. But it's happened to me, so I'm not going to be one to judge. I'm just going to roll along with it and go, this is an emotional moment. Okay. And you just go.
One of my favorite things, I don't think the story itself is a strong story, but one of my favorite things about the episode Twice Upon a Time is that for 3 seasons, people kept comparing the 12th Doctor to the first Doctor. And they kept saying, oh, look how similar he is. Oh, look how grumpy he is. Oh, look how much he's This is Peter Capaldi's playing it like, William Hartnell. And then they brought the first Doctor in and showed us how different he was now from the first Doctor in, 11 regenerations, how much he had changed as a character, as his compassion and his empathy. And I loved that so much. And I think I'm kind of echoing what you're saying about not just the evolution of a, instance of the Doctor, but in one of the eras or generations of the Doctor, but looking at the Doctor as a whole, all the way up to, as you said, that you used the great example of Matt Smith, and then you used, the fact that he kind of did a little bit of a regress because of that, I think. And I think that was a purposeful thing. But it is that whole growth, and it is how society changes and how society creeps into the writing of the stories. And I completely agree. I think that it's a natural and organic element of the storytelling of the Doctor, not just this Doctor, but of the Doctor's whole entire lifetime.
And I do think, especially with all of the new era Doctors, while you can point to areas where, oh, look how alien they are, socially awkward, don't realize what's going on, there's also the flip side of there's also equally number of emotional moments they have for them. And that's how it is for people, too. I mean, not everyone is going to handle every situation with emotional grace and clarity. Everyone's going to be socially awkward at some point and not realize what's going on, like the Doctor and Yaz not being able to communicate how she feels. I mean, it's just a better reflection of who we are as people, but projected onto somebody who we can hope to be better than us, and in many ways are, but sometimes in this emotional intelligence they're not, and that's not a bad thing. It's okay.
Yep.
Yep. All right, let's move on. So let's talk a little bit about, because we had a major change in lore here. So what were your initial impressions of the concept of bi-generation in the Giggle? And did those impressions change as the stories progressed? Did anything about that idea of bi-generation change for you? Sean, go first.
Initially, I was not a fan. It felt gimmicky. And worse, it felt gimmicky strictly to allow Tennant III to have a happy ending, since Tennant 1 and 2, well, maybe did or didn't, we don't know. And, I'm a softie. You guys know this as much as the next person. I love a happy ending. But this just seemed like, oh, for Pete's sake, we've still got another Doctor coming around, and he's going to be, we're going to keep him out here in our pocket just in case we need something. And, the cynic in me is thinking, yeah, we're going to dig up David Tennant's corpse 40 years from now and be like, hey, we need you to come back and play the Doctor one more time.
My gosh, the guy's only in his 50s. Well, I guess he'd be 90 by then. Okay.
and he will.
4 years, I mean.
He'll climb out of the coffin and be like, all right, give me the keys. So it was, and then RTD kind of clarified it and said, well, no, it was backwards along the entire time stream. And it was like, okay.
That's where I start to have even more problems.
Well, more problematic, but also, okay, that's kind of cool from the standpoint that now it does a long way of tap dancing around the why don't you look the way that you used to if you decide to bring a former Doctor back. And I think, honestly, there's almost too much of that to worry about. It's like, oh, we brought back Peter Davidson in Time Crash. Oh, the time differential shifted. Blah, blah. Okay, you fixed it. That's all I needed to worry about. Because for the most part, when I see the Doctor, I see the Doctor. It's just, You put him in the coat and the crickety stuff, and okay, yeah, that's the Doctor. I don't care how much older he is. Oh, look, Tom Baker's gray now. He's still the Doctor. I don't care. Just doing the thing. But if you throw that tiny little bit of technobabble at it, you hand wave it away, and it just, okay. So now this kind of feels like a grand setup of technobabble to explain it away. And then we get Tales from the TARDIS, and it's like, oh, okay, there's more reasons to do it for this. Okay. I still don't know that I'm a fan of it, but okay, whatever. And then, it's interesting that you brought this up. I found a graphic online, and I will send it to Glenn so that it can be, I don't know, maybe shared in the notes with this episode or something. I don't know who came up with this, and I wish I did, because I'd like to give them credit. But it kind of breaks down the Doctor's life cycle.
I've seen this.
Have you seen this?
Oh, I've taken it a step further. I have improved on it.
This is why I was going to show you. But it actually moves the Joe Martin fugitive Doctor into a different spot based on the idea that a bi-generation actually happened with Patrick Troughton when the Time Lords forced him to regenerate. And the bi-generation is what now all of a sudden satisfies season 6B, because Troughton's still running around doing Troughton things, and the Doctor, quote unquote, is over here doing this. And it was like, oh, that's brilliant. It works so well for that.
Well, you know what?
And now I kind of
you know what it also you know what it also does, because if you follow that flowchart down, it also gives a better reason for why the Watcher exists, and how that brings everything back together in the Fifth Doctor's timeline. I'm trying to export my thing to Discord here. I took that graph and went even further with it.
It talks about the Watcher. It explains Valyard. It explains the Fugitive Doctor. They're all products of these different. And I'm like, OMG! This is, of all of the fan stuff that has come out, that has been like, well, what about this? This one is like, yes. This is headcanon now. This is absolutely the way this went, because it works so well. And there are some people that I saw say, oh, now you could even work in the other faces from Brain of Morbius. And I screamed, no, because those were Morbius's faces.
You're gonna hate. You're gonna hate mine. You're gonna hate mine. You're gonna hate mine.
But I will consent that at least under this framework, it's plausible now. So. Yes, I have come on board full circle from where I was.
Keith?
I don't know if I've come on board full circle. I like the idea of it explaining that. I just wish the show, that it wasn't a behind-the-scenes explanation that gave us how we got to that route. It's just the ramifications of this and the future impacts, I don't know how I feel about. Especially, okay, so it just feels like it's not been explained in the show well enough for me to wrap my head around how it's supposed to work in the universe. Yeah, it may have rippled backwards, but does each Doctor then regenerate into that? And how is there not an infinite number of Doctors out in the universe at this point? Or if they don't regenerate, okay, to explain that to me, and that the regeneration line continues on. Will the Doctor keep by regenerating? Was it a one-time instance? Obviously, they didn't regenerate at the end of the Ncuti's run, so it made things a little too messy in my head that I can't wrap my brain fully around, and I still don't really appreciate it too much, other than hearing your guys' talk about that. I can get on board for some of that, but only because it'll explain some things that were already messy.
I'm on the same page as both of you guys on this. I've always felt like it was a gimmick. I've always felt like the Russell RTD just couldn't get he can't detach himself from David Tennant as the Doctor. He can't do it. And this was a way for him to tuck him aside, and if he, like Sean said, wanted to decide to use him again later, he could. I think that's a bad idea. I was not opposed to David Tennant coming back, either as a 10th Doctor incarnation that we got a new story, or he, ended up out of time in even, meeting the 15th Doctor. And I wasn't bothered by the fact that he was the 14th Doctor. That was okay. The bi-generation, though, it just felt gimmicky, and I agree that it felt like it messed things up. I've never agreed with RTDs, and I think that I don't think the flowchart that you're talking about, Sean, accounted for this either. But I've never agreed with the fact that it ran back through his timeline and created by generations down back his time. I can't accept that. That didn't work. Even though Tales of the TARDIS tries to codify that, to me, I think there's something else going on there. So I don't think that's a product of bi-generation. However, I'm like you guys. I've kind of accepted it for. It is a way to kind of come up with ways to fix things in the past, and so I'm okay with it. But yeah, if they never did it again, I'd be happy. It was a one-time thing. It was fine. I mean, we've had Metacrisis. We've had, other things that happen. We've had a D-generation with Jodie's Doctor. And so, I mean, we've had other things like that, but they've always sort of resolved and became, they've always normalized, I guess. And, normal isn't always great, but so I'm just kind of echoing what you guys were saying.
Well, and I lost my train of thought there. I don't know what I was going to say now. Never mind. I got distracted by your flow shot.
Oh, here. Sorry. I didn't realize I'd sent it already. Let's see.
Oh yeah, Keith hasn't seen it yet. So
well, and mine, like I said, mine is a little different because it embellishes some things. But there it is. Well, let's move on. So as we had reported earlier, Ncuti Gatwa recently cited the physical and emotional and mental demands of the role as a reason for the departure. So how do you think that the intensity of playing the Doctor impacts an actor's decision to leave the role? And I'm going to set this up by giving my first answer about this. Is a lot of people are brushing him off and saying, oh, William Hartnell was in his 50s when he did the role, and look at Tom Baker, he went 7 seasons and he was very physical and blah, blah, blah. And you have to admit, though, Ncuti Gatwa, with maybe the exception of Matt Smith, who was younger than him at the time, is one of the more energetic Doctors. I mean, he really does put a lot of energy into it. Now, don't get me wrong. David Tennant's always bouncing off the walls as the 10th Doctor. But I think that comes natural to him because I think that's just part of his personality. But I really do feel like Ncuti was putting a lot of physicality into the performance. And so I can sort of agree that maybe doing that, maybe had they done 2 seasons, gave him a little time off, and then he came back, he would have felt better about, going on. But I can see where the way he portrayed the Doctor could be physically and mentally taxing on an actor. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I can see that as well. Well, he is young. Everybody's body is different, and not everybody's body can handle what the Doctor puts on it. And people point out William Hartnell. William Hartnell wasn't running around like a crazy guy like
Exactly.
Ncuti or Matt Smith were.
Exactly.
He was a very much more subdued Doctor. Now, that being said, Peter Capaldi did run around quite a bit as well. So it's kind of it's really what your body is capable of. And the fact now that he's also saying how it was emotionally draining and mentally draining, I can almost buy into a lot of that more as the reason than physically.
Yeah.
Because while it's physically draining and a lot of hard work, especially considering they shot the 2 seasons back to back, essentially, it seems like. it all seems like it was a big, long, exhausting ordeal that had they been able to spread it out a little bit more, he might have been able to handle it and get more breaks. I think it might have been a little better for him personally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
It's also a pressure cooker of an environment. I mean, you are stepping into some rather large shoes. And in Gatwa's position, he's got two bosses because he's got to keep the BBC happy, but he's got to keep Disney Plus happy. And, you know, the corporate overlords at Disney are feed them the cheese, you know. They well, I don't know how many notes they may have had, or if somebody was on set with them the whole time going, well, can you have to do that? Or can we, I don't know how much leash RTD had or how much he was able to shield Gatwa from that. But at the end of the day, you got to please two sets of people. Mm-hmm. Then there's the fans. And as we know, fandom has fractured, as with so many other things, into these bickering, squabbling, blah, 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 blah. And I'm not even talking about that one group that we don't even consider fans anymore. They're just loud and annoying people. But the definition of fan is to be passionate about something. And so everybody's got these opinions, and not everybody's going to be pleased by it. And with work on another series, you get a little bit of exposure to that. Mm-hmm. With Doctor Who, you get all of the exposure to that. Yeah. And so it is a huge burden to carry that around with you at every appearance and show up and smile and wave at the cameras and know that somewhere in the back of your head, you're thinking, who's appreciating this? I hope these people like what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of stress involved with that. Yeah. Physically, it is a demanding role. I mean, we've done, I don't know how many short films now, and all I had to do was run around in the background of one. That was it. Just run around in the background. We're going to play some football. Okay. I stepped in a hole and blew out my knee. You know.
You're elderly, though.
Well, I am now.
That's true. You were a little bit younger then.
I was a little bit younger then. I was a little more spry.
That's true.
So, you know, and this is, that was one thing. This is running from, well, he never ran from Daleks, but, you know, he ran from everything else, and Mavity gloves and harness work. And there was a lot. Mm-hmm. There was a lot going on in these. And then he had to learn how to ballroom dance for the Bridgerton episode. I mean,
he mentions the mentally and emotionally. I wonder how much of that part is not necessarily the role, but it is the fandom.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what Sean was touching on there. It's not just. I mean, I think that goes hand in hand with what Sean was touching on. Sorry, that it's from the boss's perspective, you know, because he's trying to please two people, and then on top of that, you've got fans that are, you know, they're also listening to. So yeah, I would agree.
I mean, I imagine James Gunn was under a similar writing the new Superman film.
I don't know. I don't know if there's as much because he's the boss. He's the boss of that. He's got one boss ahead of him. He's got just one boss.
He's only got one boss and the fans to worry about. And, you know, the Snyderverse people is like, well, you're not going to please them regardless. So just move on.
Exactly.
You know, but it is unfortunate that this is a huge deal. I mean, think there's a knock at the door and here comes RTD. We'd like you to play the 17th Doctor. Once we've gotten rid of Rose and we're done with her, we want you to step into the role and take over. Do you do it? It's easy to be cavalier and say, yeah, absolutely. Of course I'd do it. But really think about it. Think about what we want from the show. Think about, you know, can you deliver that? Then think about all the grumpy people out there and what they're going to want.
Yeah.
Can you deliver that? I don't know, man. That's a lot.
Let's talk a little bit about the surprise ending of the series. With the unexpected regeneration into Billie Piper's character at the end of the run, how do you view the conclusion of the 15th Doctor's time as the Doctor?
I really wish we had more because I really, really enjoyed his run as the Doctor. I think overall, as I step back and look at his time, it's probably the most I've enjoyed the show since early Peter Capaldi's run.
Okay.
I think the amount of enjoyment and amount of fun I've had watching all the episodes it's not been that high since then. So, and I contributed quite a bit of that to his energy and his portrayal of the Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, I wish there was more that we could enjoy with him in the role.
Mm. Sean?
Honestly, same. I hate to be this person, but I feel a little cheated that we didn't get more. And it's easy to say that about every Doctor, but I'm really kind of stuck on this trilogy of seasons, that there should have been 3. It felt like we were building up to 3, and then we had to rework it to do an exit, which, okay, if you had to rework it in order to put this regeneration in there, that doesn't necessarily mean there was a whole nother season of Ncuti coming, but it at least means there was at least one more episode of Ncuti coming. Mm-hmm. So then it kind of means that he went out on a clunker. Mm-hmm. As well, because you had to rework this and, do the best with what you had. It feels a little bit in a way like Flux with Jodie, that this was a grand arc that got truncated for reasons. And so we will never know the actual full-blown plan for what could have been. And I agree with Keith. I think Ncuti was a very infectious and fun Doctor. And I am sad to see him go. I am excited over the potential of Billy Piper coming in and taking over. I hope that it's not a gimmick. I fear that it is. Mm-hmm. But I hope that we actually get her, as the Doctor for at least a season.
I agree on that last part.
Yep. I couldn't say anything more than what you guys said, so I'm just going to echo what you guys said and agree.
Well, and part of it is also, Sean, you've been thinking 3 seasons. The shortened episode runs, I understand the reason and why, and it's giving us higher production values, but it also, he only got 1 less season than everyone else, but he also got less episodes than everyone else because of shorter seasons. Mm-hmm. So it not only is it less seasons, it's less episodes in general. Mm-hmm. Had it been 2 full seasons, like just the 12 episodes that we had been getting, I might not feel as cheated as I do now because of the shorter episode runs.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Then again, maybe, a longer season may have just served to offer up more disappointment. Maybe the episodes that we would have gotten would not have been to the level of the ones that we did get. And, I have frequently said, I think Jodie has, some of the strongest episodes of Doctor Who, but they are unfortunately couched within 3 of the weakest overall seasons of Doctor Who. And I wonder, maybe had they gone that direction with Gatwa, maybe the same thing would have happened. Maybe we'd have only been talking about the 5 really good ones and everything else was kind of, I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, well, it's possible, because anything's possible. I felt like season 2 in general had stronger stories than season 1. So I have a hard time believing it would drop that significantly in season 3.
I agree.
But it's entirely possible. They could have really gone the other direction with the 3rd season.
All right, well, I've got a bonus question, and you might feel like this is a little out of place considering the rundown that we went, but there's a reason why I put the bonus question here, is because a lot of times, especially, and we just illustrated that you'll end a discussion with kind of more of a regret or downer, which I think we all agree we wanted more, and we think that maybe it was a little shorted. Here's the last bonus question, though. If you could have seen the 15th Doctor face one classic villain, he got a couple of them, or a few of them, but if there was one classic villain that he didn't encounter that you wanted to see, which one would it be and why? Is everybody thinking?
Well,
Or did everybody cut out?
No, I'm thinking.
Okay.
'Cause I could give my stock answer. Cybermen.
Yeah, the Cybermen.
Yeah. Well, I was going to stay away from Daleks too. So,
in a way, that's such a toughie because while there are villains and species that I would love to see come, I'm really, 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 especially after we got very plausible Sea Devils, I am so wanting the Draconians. I've been wanting the Draconians to come back forever.
You stole mine.
But, did I? Let me add a caveat to it. I think the Draconians would have worked so much better for Capaldi's run.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but that's just, they're on the same playing field. I don't know how Ncuti Gatwa's Doctor would match up with the Draconians. So, not only bringing back a classic villain, but a classic villain that really kind of fits this Doctor.
I'm kind of on that same page with the Draconians. I want to see them. I want to see them back in the series. Do I want to see them face the 15th Doctor? I think that his approach to, I think he's such a polar opposite from the Draconian society that there would be this massive clash. And so I think being on uneven playing fields would make the story even more interesting. So I think that the 15th Doctor could face off against Draconians, and you really could do a lot with that story. My other quick one would be, and it's a cheat because he did sort of face off, I would rather have a better Omega face off than we got.
Yeah, Omega really deserved better.
Candyman.
I really think I'll stick with Candyman.
Okay.
Because with RTD's run of fantasy and the over-the-topness of everything in this 2 seasons, it would fit in fairly well. And I could totally see Ncuti Gatwa landing in that society again and seeing it not really evolve or change much and railing against it and really upturning this, really successfully, doing what potentially the 7th Doctor wasn't able to the first time, even though it seems like he should have been able to, but you got to have a reason for them to go back.
Right.
Or even if Candyman had been spirited away and reassembled and cobbled together and was now an IG-88 style bounty hunter. Here comes Candyman, and he's like a Terminator, and he's chasing the Doctor down. I'd have been down for that.
Still with candy weapons.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Naturally, yeah.
Keith, you've sold me on this idea. I want the Candyman back.
He'd be firing candy canes, but not just dull candy canes, like the sharp ones after you've sucked on the end of one for a long time, and it's got that really fine point. You jab yourself in the mouth every once in a while with it. Those kind of candy canes.
I can see Gatwa's, oh, come on, babes. Gumdrops. I'm going to go unconventional.
Okay.
I agree. I think we stay away from. It's odd that we stay away from Cybermen and Daleks, but I kind of like that we've stayed away from Cybermen and Daleks. So we'll keep that.
Well, they're the easy ones, I think.
Well, yeah.
I would. This is going to sound weird. The ones that I feel like maybe we didn't get a great return on per se, something like the Nestine Consciousness and the Autons.
Okay. Yeah.
I think would be really interesting for Gatwa.
We haven't seen him since the reboot of the series, so
yeah.
Who is it?
How about the demons? Bring what's the Stephen Thorne's character? That what's his name?
It's Azrael.
Yeah. Bring him back.
And a fantasy element. Yeah, I mean, obviously the rest of the Pantheon, the Mara, and, I kind of feel like that was still on docket.
Oh, the gods of Ragnarok. Bring them back.
Yeah.
You're right. They may have still been on deck. In fact, your
they
whole...
could still be on deck.
Yeah, your whole trickster theory that you laid out a few weeks ago is still intriguing. I don't know that I'd see them going that way, but that's an intriguing theory.
Maybe the Sontarans. Oh, no, Routons. Duh. we haven't had a good Routon episode
Yeah, we haven't had a good Routon.
Yeah,
You're
that's
right.
true.
Yeah, let's do
that.
the
Should be the
Routons.
standard answer. When are we going to get to see the Routons?
There you go. There you go. All right, well, we're getting a little long, so let's go ahead and wrap this up. Anything else you guys want to talk about the era before we leave?
Too short a season it was. I will miss you.
Indeed.
Yes, for sure.
All right, well, that's going to do it for this time. Until next time, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
Now I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you.
Thanks for listening.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.